Welcome to the Rex Sanders Show. Glad to have you. This is the show that's all about people, stories, and interesting topics. And of course, my mantra that I kind of throw out there, common sense is not extinct. Now, it might be on the endangered species list, but common sense is really not extinct for regular people. Okay, so if you're new to the program, thank you for dialing in. We are excited to have you in the conversation. For those who are returning, thank you very much. Now, I'm a well-dressed beggar. I actually have a caller on today. So if you like what we're doing, please, we beg you to give us good ratings. Helps us in the stores as far as the placement. And we'd like to get the house cleaning out of the way. So thank you to everyone who's listening. You pushed us into the top 10 fastest growing podcasts out there, which is quite an accomplishment between you, the listeners, and our great guests. Don't forget to subscribe on any platform that you're on. We're on 23 different platforms. We have listeners in 32 countries, 6 continents, and if I could afford and train the penguins to listen to the show down there, we'd probably have people on the 7th. So fantastic. Last thing, don't forget to go to the show website. The things we talk about on all of our shows only cover just almost the tip of the iceberg sometimes with our guests. So we have a lot of information out there, but then links to their online assets. And so we just tell people, hey, go check out the website, rexandrewshow.com. So, well, today we got a repeat of guest. This is part 2. I've got Dr. Eric Plasker. So for those who have listened in, we're going to skip some of the story stuff. We're going to get into a lot of stuff that he's doing today. Please do go into the archives of the show and on the website and get the links and listen to the first interview we did with Dr. Plasker, because he's an amazing gentleman and do lots of things. Okay, so Dr. Plasker, how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you, Rex? Good to see you. Thanks for having me back so quick. I'm glad we got inspired.
Well, there are just many guests that we have that we just don't get to unpack things as much that we like to. And, I try to keep the show as educational as possible. There's an old saying that said, you try to make things idiot proof, but the problem is God makes better idiots every day. So I try to get it so we're all doing things that make us smarter and still entertaining, insightful, and inspiring. So on our last interview, we talked about your history and how you got there and, a lot of your professional accomplishments. But what I wanted to unpack today is talking about the 100-year lifestyle. Okay. Before we went on air today, we were talking about just how things are starting to surface as far as awareness on better health. Okay. And you have done something that's pretty amazing. I know you've got in your network over 100 offices that are, teaching these tactics and programs and stuff like that. And so I know that you have trained thousands of doctors in your field over the years. And so I want to unpack that today. I want to talk about the 100-year lifestyle. And real quick, let's repeat the short version of the gentleman who motivated you to start the 100-year lifestyle.
Great. Well, thanks again. And yes, I do believe it is an idea whose time has come. The world is finally catching up to these ideas. And, when I first got into practice, I took care of lots of kids and babies and families and athletes, and we got them from crisis care to make that critical transition to lifestyle care. But I had never, ever, ever seen a 98-year-old man or a 100-year-old man until Max came into my office. And He came in 98 years old, crippled, broke, and alone. I'm going to give you the short version.
Sure.
We have the long version, obviously a longer version on our first call, and it's also on our website, 100yearlifestyle.com. But Max came in and he looked at me all broken down and he asked me, Dr. Plasker, can you help me? And I was thinking to myself, well, Max, I have no freaking idea. I had no idea whether or not I was going to be able to help him. I had never seen a 100-year-old man before, 98-year-old man. So I said, listen, as long as you're alive and breathing and there's life flowing over your nervous system, let's give it a shot. So I started to work with him, adjust him, align his spine, remove pressure from his nervous system, adjust him. And wouldn't you know it, a month goes by, he's doing amazing, standing up straighter, pain lines in his face are gone. He's moving a little quicker. He's got more pep in his step. 3 months goes by. We have the realization that this beautiful soul is doing fantastic. So we have this realization that he got to 98 crippled, broken, alone. He'd been suffering for decades. What would his life have been like if he had taken care of himself all along the way? And now here he is in our office, and we felt bad for him because he was paying with crinkled up dollar bills, and he was always by himself, always alone, like we said,
Yeah.
crippled, broken, alone. So we adopted him. We tried to adopt him. We fed him. We gave him rides and all of these things. We fell in love with this beautiful soul. Every time he would get adjusted, he would shake my hand with his crippled hand, say, "Thank you, Dr. Plasker, thank you," and go up to the front, pay, and leave. So we say, hey, let's adopt him. Let's give him free care.
Sure.
How big is the suitcase? A year goes by. He wouldn't accept any charity. We just love this guy.
Right.
All of a sudden, a year later, he misses an appointment. Never happened before. And so we're thinking, okay, let's try and reach Max. We go to his house. We make a phone call. No answer. So what do you think we're thinking, right, everybody? We're thinking that he passed.
Yeah.
So we say goodbye.
Yeah.
We say a little prayer and go about our business. Well, another year goes by, and Max comes walking through the front door of the office without an appointment. He opens the door. I'm in the back adjusting. The bells on the front jingle, jingle, jingle.
Sure.
And my assistant screams like she's seeing a ghost. "Oh my God, Max!" I come around. I clear out the rooms, come around. I say, "Hang on to your hat, everybody. Here it comes." I say, "Thank you." I say, "Max, where have you been?" I give him a big hug. He looks up at me, grabs my hand like he had done so many times before, says, "Thank you, Dr. Plasker, thank you," and dies.
Right there in your arms, right there.
Right there in the reception room. And I said, "Call 911. I said to my assistant, she calls 911. Too late. Rigor mortis literally almost instantly set in. His spirit was gone. I picked him up. Body was hard. To this day, it's the only dead body I've ever carried like this in my life. Laid him down in the back office. Ambulance comes to take him away, never to be heard from again.
Wow.
Except I couldn't get it out of my head that if Max had known that he was going to live to be 100 when he was 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, how would he have lived his life differently so that he didn't get there crippled, broken, alone?
Yeah.
So we asked the question, if you knew you'd live to 100, how would you change your life? We asked it everywhere, and the responses were all over the charts, and it intrigued me, and it became a life's work.
Fantastic. That's an amazing story. I love it. I've told several people that that story, the entire interview is episode number 87. And again, it's on your website, and it's in social media. It's everywhere you can find it. Anyway, so fantastic to recap that. Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to lead the witness here a little bit. I've been thinking about this based on our previous conversation on off air before we went on live. Okay. The 100-year lifestyle, it's really intriguing to me because I'm going to tell just a snippet of my story. Okay. Back in the day, I was a college athlete. I was a place kicker. When I went to college, I weighed 167 pounds of soaking wet. Okay, so I wasn't a big kid. Okay, but the problem I had, or the advantage, however you want to look at it, all of my college roommates were football players and suite mates. So I hung out with the football team. Well, I spent a lot of time in the weight room. Well, August I go up 167. Spring break I go home at 235. So I bulked up and just became this, football player. After school, tried to get into the NFL. That didn't work out. That's a very, very difficult process. The people who actually play in the NFL are freaks of nature. They really are, just for their skill sets and those types of things. But got into my career, took care of myself, but just like a lot of people, got married, started having my wonderful family. I've got 5 kids. Recently, a year ago in 2 days, I was a grandfather. Okay, but along the way, my life was filled with service. Okay, so I had to serve my family first. 5 kids. We had 5 kids in 9 years. So bing, bang, boom, they just came along. Boy, that changed my perception, because I always joke, if you have 1 kid, that's a novelty. 2 kids is man-to-man defense. 3 kids is a flooded zone. Okay, and after 3, a flooded zone, it doesn't matter. You can have 10 because you're already living in chaos. Okay, so I was living in chaos a decade. I spent my time, there was a decade of diapers, and then there was a decade of sports and dance and everything you can think of as far as activities. And now I'm in that expensive phase of a decade of college and career starting and things. So that's an expensive time. But along the way, I put myself last. Okay. I absolutely put myself last. I was eating the standard and still do. I got to change this, the standard American diet. So everybody calls that sad. I was on the run all the time. I don't do it anymore, but I was eating in a lot of places that have drive-thrus. Now, that's one of my rules now. It's got a drive-through. I don't want to stop there. But in that process, I didn't take care of myself. Okay. And because of that, I'm not in the best shape that I could be at age 55. So when I heard your story and investigated what you guys are doing, I'm like, you know what? I got to know more about this. I got to be part of this, because now I don't know what my life expectancy is. I have no idea. I do have some intermittent track record of being in shape and healthy, but putting yourself last, you really can fall into a trap. And so I'd like to have you, if you could, explain the 100-year lifestyle. And then how would you take a guy like me? All right. I mean, a little selfishness here today, because every time I do an interview, I feel like I'm the one that learns the most. How would you take a guy like me and turn things around like you did with Max? I mean, if a guy that's 98 can do it, I think a guy that's 55 can, or any age.
No question about it. So if you're watching this, I'm like rubbing my hands together. I'm getting excited about this conversation. And I'm proud of you for, number one, acknowledging the realities. And I think that's a big part of it. I myself had 3 kids. My wife, I didn't have them. My wife had them. I contributed, certainly, but we had 3 kids close together within 4 years. And my son's accident, and had a couple of other things happen in life that put me last in my life. I put myself last. A lot of people are in that boat. But then you have the realization that if you put yourself last, you can put yourself first, or even second if you have to. It doesn't have to be last.
Yeah.
And so, but you put yourself higher on the priority list because you realize your family needs you and that you need you to be healthy. And so it's all about change. I remember going back, I had pictures. I was a Usher's chiropractor for years. A lot of people know Usher, the music superstar. I was his chiropractor for 5 years, and he ended up endorsing the 100-year lifestyle. I had pictures of him with all my kids, but I had a picture of me with him, but I would never show it because I was 60 pounds heavier than I am now.
Oh my goodness.
2002. And so, I understand what you're going through. And a lot of you, if you were an athlete or if you were leaner at one point in your life, this is not about weight loss. This is not about weight gain. This is about changing your life. The 100-year lifestyle is literally about changing your life. And it's not about adding years to your life either, by the way. This is not about living longer just for the sake of adding years.
Sure.
This is not borrowed time, Rex, everybody listening. This is birthright time. What we're learning about 100-year-old people, which still today, even after this ridiculousness, pandemic, whatever you want to call it, what we're realizing is that people are still, 100-year-old people are still one of the world's fastest growing group. These 100-year-old people are healing from COVID and all kinds of other things. And they got to 100. This is the big part of it. You ready? Without a plan. They didn't plan to get to 100. This is a generation, when they were born 100 years ago. Do you know what their scientifically predicted life expectancy was?
Probably 74, 75. Right?
Actually, it was like 55.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a generation that has outlived its scientifically predicted life expectancy
by 40 years.
Almost 5 decades.
Wow.
That's longer than many of our listeners have been alive.
Yeah.
So, and they didn't have a plan. They just never died when science said they were supposed to. They kept on living. But the problem is that because they didn't, quote unquote, die when they were supposed to, they also never really lived, many of them, for the last decades of their life. And they did not take care of themselves along the way so they can ensure quality years. And when they maybe lived and did not take care of themselves, they, smoking, and many of them, like my parents smoked. My father lived to be 78. He was a smoker for years. He was overweight. He didn't plan to live. He outlived his father, who only lived into his mid-60s, but he lived into his 70s. And so, we look at, and here I am, I'm 58. My father had a heart attack at 49. I'm 58. I've never had a heart attack. I'm healthier than he ever was. And people would say, you know what, well, Dr. Plasker, don't you have heart disease in your family? And no, I don't have heart disease in my family. I had smoking in my family. I had overeating in my family. I had bad food in my family. I had lack of exercise in my family. It wasn't genetics. Genetics got blamed on all kinds of things that weren't genetics' fault.
Yeah.
So it's important that we understand that we have choices. And if we change our choices, we change our life. So the 100-year lifestyle is really about acknowledging the fact that we're not looking to squeeze all the lemonade out of the lemon, living on borrowed time. That this is actually birthright time. And we're going to get there, probably live longer than we ever thought, whether we like it or not, Rex. That's the other thing. So you
Sure.
can have an opinion about it. But the question is, what is the quality going to be like? And the quality depends on choices. And the choices is what you have the ability to do. You have the ability to change. And what's really interesting, and I'm not just the only example, we've had people that are gotten involved with the 100-year lifestyle. Some of them have eliminated. I don't want to say lost, because when I lost 60 pounds, people said to me, Dr. Plasker, you lost all that weight. And I said, no, I didn't lose anything. I eliminated it. It was never mine. I'm not finding it. It's not mine. I'm not going to find it again. I'm not going on that roller coaster ride. I'm changing my life, which everything that I'm saying is kind of funny, Rex, but it is a mindset of change. Do you know what I'm saying? It's a mindset of change. And we'll probably get into some change strategies here that we have that anybody can follow, and their mindsets, their principles that are so meaningful, because the 100-year lifestyle is really it's about real, lasting, personal and cultural change.
Okay.
That has to do with taking responsibility for yourself, making yourself less vulnerable, and living at 100%. Like we have workout shirts, people love them. It says 100% for 100 years. Sure beats 73% for 81 years.
That's for
or
sure.
57% for 60 years.
Well, it's interesting what you said there. When we talk about genetics, okay, people think we're predestined for things. And what's interesting is we have a generation that's outlived their expectancy. So that means that genetics don't play as big as a role as a lot of people think. It's about the lifestyle, okay? And so I really resonate with this. Now, you teach this in addition to, so we're going to unpack this, but you teach this all over the world, right? And, as far as what you're working on.
I do. I've spoken in all over the world. I've had several world tours, and I do a lot of continuing education work, postgraduate work for chiropractors, fitness professionals, and mental health professionals. I've just done a lot in a lot of different places. Financial people. I've spoken at the keynote speaker for National Association for Financial Planners and Personal Financial Planners, things like that, because every system in our country and really in the world, Rex, was not designed for longevity. It was designed for like a 65-year lifespan.
Yeah.
You're gonna retire, live for a few years, and then you're gonna die.
Yeah.
But now people are living decades longer than they were supposed to, and nobody ever planned for that. We're trying to plan for that by having more money by the time we're 65. But we have to ask the question: is retirement a good idea anyway?
No, I'm one of those. The only way that I'm going to die on a day that I'm not working is going to be a Sunday, because that's it. I can't even imagine unplugging and doing nothing. I mean, it keeps your brain running if you're doing those things.
We have found, it's true. We have found people retire. Many of them get sick and die, or they get sick and deteriorate. And, that's not the way it's supposed to be. If you look, there are some of the best actors have been acting into their 70s, 80s, and 90s, just taking on different roles.
Sure. And
politicians are acting and ridiculously working, many of them with, but they have experience. They know how to play the system, and they're working into their 70s, 80s, and 90s, some of them. And then we see professional sports team owners that are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. They don't want to retire. And so the question is, how do you set up a life for yourself that you're having so much fun with the things that you do? You're using your talents, you're profitable, you're taking as much time off as you want to, not just Sunday, but really whenever you want to, because you have freedom. Because of the way we have a time system in the 100-year lifestyle, prime time, prep time, play time, that is all about how do you do that as time goes on, as you age. And so how do you set your life up so that you are enjoying it every day along the way, and you have the right kind of balance that is fulfilling while also giving you the opportunity to enjoy the quality of life for your family, so with your family. And so these are all things that you have control over, that if you understand how to live and you realize that, you know what, I want to live differently, then you could start this process of change, which starts with the vision. And there's a calculation I want everybody to do. You can get it on 100yearlifestyle.com. One of the articles on 100-Year Lifestyle Essentials is a calculation where you calculate your longevity potential based on what we know about your personal family history. I'll give it to everybody right now. So if you don't want to go to the website, you don't have to. But you take the age of the oldest relative in your family that ever lived or is still living, grandparent, let's say great-grandparent, and let's just use the number 90.
Yep.
And let's say you're 45. So you take what we know about your family history, 90 years, minus your 45 years. That means you have a minimum potential years remaining that we know of 45 years. Could be more, maybe less.
Yep.
So you look at that number and you say, well, I don't like that number. It's too small. It's too big. Everybody has an opinion about that number. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter whether you like it or not. It's your number.
Yeah, it's
your number.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean it's your minimum number. It doesn't mean it's your maximum number.
Sure.
And if you are living your life and changing your life accordingly, how could you make those years so amazing that you would love them? Well, that's what the 100-Year Lifestyle is all about. It's about changing and moving in that direction. But what's interesting, Rex, is that we have people that, let's just use those same numbers, where their oldest relative in their family was 90 and they're 95 now.
Yeah.
So their number's -5. They've already outlived the oldest person in their family, and they're still going, right? And they realize, I don't want to go anywhere. Or somebody might be 80 and they only have 10 years, and they're like, you know what? I kind of like it here. I think I want to stick around more than 10 years, and they'll change their life. And then we have 10-year-olds that'll do that calculation, and they say, holy crap, I have 80 more years. Holy crap, what am I going to do? And they say, you know what, I'm going to live the kind of life that is going to make me happy and be fulfilling. And if we call it the leverage of longevity, where it puts this you can't get that number, that empire number, once it gets in your head, you can't get it out of your head.
Sure.
So every time you pick up a bad food, you're like, you know what? This is not a trick. This is not a treat. This is really a trick. I've been tricked. This is not a treat. I'm going to throw that out. I'm not going to do that. Or when you're sitting too much, or when you're stressed out and you're going to take a pill instead of going to get an adjustment to balance yourself out. I mean, these are things that we call it the midstream catch, where you catch yourself in the middle of making bad choices. You start to make good choices in the moment. And that's how lives are changed, Rex. It's not like with some fancy quick fix surgical procedure.
Right.
It's really making a commitment to personal change.
Okay. So let's unpack that a little bit. Usually when people have programs and things like that, they'll talk about pillars or aspects or components. When you look at the 100-year lifestyle, what are those components that make up this up? Because you talked about something you mentioned early on. I hope to always be a good listener about the mental side of these things too. So what are the components that make up a 100-year lifestyle?
Great. So I'm going to give you the whole big picture, and then I'm going to break it down and start at the beginning.
Okay, sure.
So we have vision, getting the vision for your extended life. Change, following change principles to support you changing to move towards your vision. Then we have energy, having youthful energy, regardless of your age. And then there's stop killing yourself, eliminating bad habits. Then there's resetting healthcare priorities, not just being crisis-oriented, but being lifestyle-oriented. And then there's relationships and lifelong learning and how you spend your time, and building a surround sound support system and quality time living, prime time, prep time, play time, so you balance out your time while you're alive and not wait and put things off into the future, but you find the ideal balance today. And then there's financing your 100-year lifestyle, because you're going to need more than you thought for longer than you thought. And then there's leadership, climbing that leadership ladder along the way so that you don't put your wisdom in a box when you get older, but you can share your wisdom with the world as you get older. And so those are the pillars that are a
Okay.
part of the 100-Year Lifestyle. The books that we have, the 100-Year Lifestyle second edition is the one you want to get on Amazon if you want to. If you email us, we have an ebook. Actually, we're going to be putting out a 100 Healthy Days program to get people started if they want to. So be on the lookout for that down the road. We just completed it. We're going to do it again in July is my guess. We haven't decided it, but that's what we're talking about. The 100-Year Lifestyle second edition has been fantastic. And then when you get into that, the change principles of the 100-Year Lifestyle, and once you start to get the vision, I think is the first giant step that people take.
Okay.
And if you want, I'll go through these principles. They're simple. There's 3 of them, and it'll really get people going, I think, in a way like right now they could start taking action steps that are meaningful and gain personal confidence.
Okay. So I'm going to be selfish again. We're going to take Rex as the lab rat here. Rex that needs to change some lifestyle things. What are those 3 steps? If you're going to coach me through this, what are those 3 steps?
Okay, so I would say to you, Rex, so here's the reality. What is your empire? What's your number? You have the oldest grandparent in your family that ever lived.
94.
94. How old are you?
55.
55. So that's 40 more years, basically.
Yep. Basically 40 years, yep.
Okay, so the question that you have to ask yourself is that do you know that you have some changes that you need to make?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, because I want to kick his butt. That was my maternal grandfather, and he was always competitive. He was an amazing mentor, but I want to kick his butt. So 94 is a minimum, right?
Right, that's right. It's the minimum. Okay, good. So now watch. So here's the process. So you know that you need to make some changes, correct?
Sure.
Okay, and so is not making the changes that you personally know, because here's the thing, everybody. These are not changes that I know you need to make. We've never met.
Yeah.
These are changes that you already know that you personally need to make. So Rex, there are changes that you personally know without me even telling you that these are changes that you know that you need to make. So here's the question. Is not making these changes that you know that you need to make causing you some level of suffering?
Absolutely.
Okay, what kind of suffering?
Okay, about 6 years ago, I ate my way into type 2 diabetes. And that's a roller coaster you don't want to be on. They put you on all kinds of meds. Metformin will eat up your kidneys, and there's all kinds of things like that. And I know because I've been told a dozen times it's reversible, right? There's a way to get that running. Now, I'm not to the point where I have to take insulin, so I'm still in a good position where I can reverse those things. Right, but that would be the number one. There's the number one suffer for me right now. It impacts everything.
Okay, so, and I appreciate your openness with everybody, and this is meaningful to have somebody that's willing to come on the air and just kind of go through this process.
Sure.
So here's the next question then. If there's only one thing worse than suffering, do you know what that is?
Death.
Perpetual suffering.
Okay, yeah.
It's almost worse than death, right?
Yeah.
It's suffering for 100 years. So whatever suffering your lack of making the choices that you know that you need to make is causing you, the suffering only gets worse with time.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
So the motivation that people have to choose is it going to be crisis motivation? Are you going to just wait for another crisis and then another crisis and then another crisis as a crisis motivated person until the crisis gets so bad that you have absolutely no choice? Or are you going to make a quality of life choice where you want to change?
Sure.
And it is a difference between need versus want.
Sure.
When it comes to health, this is really important. See, people resent paying for what they need, but people love paying for what they want.
Absolutely.
So if as a person who is in the position to make a change, your motivation to go from need to want is very, very important to have quality of life as you change. You don't want to rot away to 94. You want to have quality years to 94.
That's right.
So at some point, you're going to be faced with choices constantly, every day, multiple choices. Every single day, you're going to be faced with choices. And in that moment, when you're faced with choices, you have the opportunity to change and choose between crisis versus quality of life motivation. And there are 3 life-changing principles that we teach people to follow in order to make these changes. And I'll give them to you real quickly. And then if you want, we could talk about each one because you're going to be thinking about these things every time, every day, every time you're faced with a choice. Do you want to hear them?
Of course, because
Okay.
I have to look in the mirror, and I ate my way into my condition. Okay, I own it, right? I mean, that's mine. But if I own something like that, I can change that.
Well, and you can eat your way out too. You just have to eat differently.
Yep, that's right.
And we have a saying before I get into the change principles, the 3 change principles, and I love the saying. It goes like this. It says, your innate intelligence, your body's innate intelligence will organize around the thoughts you think, the choices you make, and the lifestyle that you live.
I love that.
So what does that mean? Okay, real quick. So if you overeat, if you didn't have an intelligence within you, an innate intelligence, then your stomach would only hold a certain amount. And if you overfilled it, your stomach would explode instead of expand, and your blood and guts would be everywhere and you'd be dead.
Right.
But you have an innate intelligence. So your body says, okay, I get it. And so your stomach expands, it packs on the extra food as weight, and then so you gain a little weight. If you do that on an ongoing basis, your innate intelligence thinks, okay, we're preparing for a long winter. You must be trying to be a grizzly bear, right?
Yep.
And so your body changes. But then if you change the way you eat, your innate intelligence says, okay, it's winter's over. It's spring, it's summer. You're out and about, you're moving. Okay, I get it. So we're going to get you back in shape. And if you make those changes, your body will adapt. And if you have confidence in your body's innate intelligence, it is amazing how inspiring that becomes for you, because then when you realize these change principles, which I'll go through them right now real quick. The first one, we call it the magnet principle.
Okay.
And it's change is easy. Thinking about change is hard, counterintuitive to what a lot of people think. Change is hard. A lot of people think that's not true. Change is easy. Thinking about change is hard.
Right.
The second one is the persistence principle. Change comes one choice at a time. Think progress, not perfection.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one is the compelling principle. If you're going to make a change, make it with your ideal 100-year lifestyle in mind. Make the vision for your change so compelling that it will enable you to ride through the ups and the downs.
Fantastic. Oh man, those are great. Coming from a background in tech, okay, whenever we deploy anything, it has to do with change management. Okay, technology for the sake of technology is worthless. Okay, unless you change, unless you figure out how to use those things, and actually how to make that a better path. And so, success or failure is always about change management. And so, when I look at what you're doing with these 3 principles, it's really change management.
Beautiful. Well said. And, that first principle is, we call it the magnet. When I was a kid, I used to love playing with magnets.
Okay.
And it always intrigued me that if you had 2 magnets and the 2 north poles were touching each other,
Yep.
that no matter how hard you tried to hold things together, hold the magnets together,
Right.
the magnets would push themselves apart.
Exactly.
Because that's the law of magnetism.
Mm-hmm.
But what I always loved, that I was intrigued by, that if you flip one of the magnets around, now they attract. They
Yep.
stick. So now, this is great. I love this. This is so fun. You ready?
Yep.
Now, instead of requiring energy to hold things together, it requires energy to pull them apart.
That's right.
So people will ask us, like, where's the energy going to come from to make these changes? And the answer is that it's innate energy. It's already in you. You're just using the energy for survival. So when you make these changes, these things that you need to change, your energy skyrockets. Because now that energy gets freed up. Instead of having to survive, it's to, what do I want to do? Who do I want to be? What do I want to think about? What's my vision? Can I accomplish it? Of course I can, because I have the energy now, because change is easy. Thinking about change is hard. So you free up the energy. When I was in the process of eliminating weight,
Mm-hmm.
my brothers and I went on a ski trip. We went to Park City, Utah. We went to actually skied at Snowbird, and we stayed at a nice place over there. And as we were walking to our room for the first time, I could hear the chocolate on the bed talking to me.
Oh, wow.
And we were way down the hall, but I could hear it, Rex. I'm telling you, it was saying, eat me, eat me. And so when we got in the room, I was right. There were chocolates on the bed, and my brothers, because they didn't really realize my commitment level to making change. And I walked in, I went right to the bed. I had a conversation with the chocolate, and I squunched it up, threw it in the garbage, and said, "You know what? You're a liar. I'm throwing you out right now. Don't talk to me." And you get the edge when you realize, when you commit to change. But when you don't commit to change, when you're on the fence about it, man, you're like tempted everywhere. There's temptation everywhere. So we have to, understanding this principle, you have to get control over your addictions in your mind. You have to take control over these addictions, acknowledge them, and you have to be willing to win and make the change. Commit to change, not thinking about change. Change is easy. Thinking about change is hard. So when you make that change, good things come to you magnetically.
Okay. That makes all the sense in the world. Okay. Persistence.
Okay. Persistence. So change comes one choice at a time. Think progress, not perfection.
Sure.
So I'm going to give you a quick chemistry experiment.
Sure. Okay.
So in chemistry, there's a chemical experiment called titration, which, if you've ever seen how they test pool water, they'll take a scoop of pool water, and then they take a dropper and they drop one chemical into the pool water. Drop, 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 nothing happens. Drop, 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 nothing happens. Drop, 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 nothing happens. One last drop, everything changes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it changes color, right? Usually pink. You know the experiment?
Okay.
Okay, so if you've ever watched them, this is how it works. Now, here's the $1 million, 100-year lifestyle question. Which is the most important drop? Out of all of those drops, which is the most important drop? Want to take a stab at it?
No, I'm going to miss that one, so tell me.
Okay. So a lot of people will say the first one because you have to start.
Yeah.
A lot of people will say, no, it's the last one because that's when the color changed.
Right.
But here's the reality. Every single drop matters because without one of them, nothing would have changed.
Yep, exactly.
The color would not have changed.
Yep.
So what does that have to do with what we're talking about? When it comes to change, which is the cookie that makes you fat? Is it the first one, the last one, or is it all of them?
All of them.
Which is the ice cream scoop that makes you fat? The first one, the last one, or all of them?
Well, I'd love to say the last one, but it is actually all of them.
Right. So watch. That's why the lifestyle becomes so important. And we've been sold through marketers so many things that are not good for us. It's terrible. It's terrible what we have been sold, that we have to take our minds back and be willing to make these changes with every choice that we make. You know, we tell our patients in our practice all the time, which is the adjustment that makes a difference? Is it the first one, the last one, or is it all of them? It's all of them.
Right.
You know, it's a part of a lifestyle, keeping yourself aligned and balanced, well adjusted, which is the a piece of broccoli, or which is the lean protein, or which is the fruit or vegetable that's going to make a difference. It's all of them. It's the lifestyle that makes the change. And when you do that, you realize that, one of my favorite sayings that is quoted a lot in the 100-Year Lifestyle is to learn to love the things that are good for you and make those things your new lifestyle, because the treats that we think are treats are really tricks. They're really tricks. We have been lied to. They are tricks. So persistence is every time you're faced with a choice, choose quality of life motivation, choose living in 100% for 100 years, not rotting away, not deteriorating, but enjoying your quality of life, playing with your grandkids one day, traveling the world, having an abundance of everything that is meaningful to you. And that requires persistence every time you're faced with a choice. And if you ever get off track and you start, because we all do, by the way, where you start making bad choices, then you make one and you make two, you make three, you have to watch yourself like you're watching a movie and catch yourself in the middle and make a different choice. And ask me what the shortcut is to that process. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
There is none.
All right.
There's no shortcut.
Okay.
When it comes to personal change, that is the only way. And anyone that tries to shortcut it, like you said, with your medication that they wanted to prescribe you, that is not a shortcut. That is a destiny of suffering. To be reliant on organ-destroying medicines that create all kinds of side effects just because you don't want to control what you're eating, that ends up leading, my friend, to perpetual suffering. So the persistence principle becomes important once you commit to change.
Okay. And the next one was compelling principles.
Yeah. So the compelling principle is I think why people get off track is that they'll set a goal or they'll get a vision. And here's the vision. I have a wedding coming up in 3 months and I have to fit into my suit.
Yep.
That is not a compelling vision. That is a very short-term, superficial vision.
Right.
Now, do I want you to fit into your suit? Of course I want you to fit into your suit. Do I want you to fit into your dress? Of course I want you to fit into your dress. I want you to be beautiful. I want you to feel beautiful, of course. And what happens to a lot of people is the event is over and they go back to the old ways that cause them to not like themselves, that cause them to not be happy, that cause them to have low energy, that cause them to feel unworthy, that cause them to not enjoy the quality of life that they deserve.
Right.
So the reason why long-term visions matter is because they are principles. Health is a long-term vision, is a principle. I want to be healthy at 80, 90, and 100. I want to pick up my grandkids. You know, my wife's grandfather, God rest his soul today. This is an amazing story. This is a true story. I got the first draft of the 100-Year Lifestyle on December 7th, 2006. It was the galley of the book before it was released to the public on his 100th birthday.
Wow.
And we got to celebrate it. And that was an accident. That was so serendipitous. It was so cool. And this is a guy, he was fit, he was healthy, he did not take medicine. He got sick at 98. He had the flu, and ended up going to the hospital. His family brought him to the hospital. He literally, within a couple of days, he said he ripped I'm not recommending this, by the way, but he ripped all the needles and everything out of his arm, got up and walked out of the hospital. Wow. He said, I am not doing this. You're killing me. And he got up, he walked out. And this is a guy at age 99 and 100 even. He was following the duckies around with his great-great-grandchildren. And he was keeping up almost. And it was amazing. He was an amazing guy, strong guy. But he wasn't a drug addict, and he wasn't looking to take shortcuts to things. He was an amazing guy. We loved him. Papa High was his name. And so, you know, here's a guy that if you knew you were going to live to be 100, how would you change your life today? And he lived that way in so many ways. He had the financial resources to do it. He wasn't over the top wealthy, but he was certainly had the resources to live a quality life. He was married for over 60 years, so he had an amazing relationship and companionship. When his wife passed away within a couple of years, he had new companionship. And so what do you want your life to be like? What are the principles? Is it health? Is it relationships? Is it financial abundance? It's all the pillars that you asked me about when we started this call, right?
Right.
Lifelong learning. He was involved. He had friends. He had circles of friends, circles of relationships. We talk about in the 100-Year Lifestyle that you want multiple circles of relationships because as you age, people start going to more funerals than parties.
Sure.
So if you lose one circle, you still have other circles and you're not alone. And so these are things that are so important. So if you think about those pillars now that we talked about, and every section of the 100-Year Lifestyle book, by the way, has a action plan so that you can follow it. And so you take these steps, you take this action plan, you follow it, and as time goes on, you realize, you know what? Man, I don't want to go anywhere. This is getting really good. The doctors that we work with and the patients that they work with and the people that we work with, their whole perspective changes when they start to take care of themselves. They start to get healthier. They're standing up straighter. They're not in chronic pain anymore. They have more flexibility. And what I'll tell you, when I was young in this, Rex, this was always intriguing to me about my chiropractic practice, which we still have today. So I would have people come in, no matter what their age, 20, 30, 40, 50. And if you're in pain, you feel old. If you're sick, you feel old.
Oh yeah.
You start to get healthy, you feel younger. So it was always intriguing to me after 3 months of care or a year of being under lifestyle care or 5 years under lifestyle care, I would ask people, so you remember that first day when you started here? Do you feel younger 3 months, 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years later? Do you feel younger today than you did back then? 100% across the board, the answer is yes. So then you realize that quality of life has nothing to do with age.
Right.
So when you get on this path, you get excited about your life.
That's for sure. I see not only myself but others when you are basically living in pain. You feel a lot older. I mean, they've always talked about this concept and of what's your really your health age. Okay, so you're 40 years old, but you have X, Y, and Z issues. Okay, so you really aren't 40. You might be 55 or something like that because you have chronic problems and those types of things. So very interesting when you talk about it has nothing to do with age. It really doesn't. I understand that.
And so Rex, I'm going to talk to you again and all the other yous that are out there listening.
Yeah, because I'm not alone. There's
Right,
millions of me. Yep, there's millions of me.
So the good news is that you have the opportunity ahead of you to change.
Yep.
Here's the bad news, and I'm sorry to tell you all this because we've already been through this has been a fun conversation. Here's the bad news. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
There is no way you're going to be able to get this out of your head. I am in your head. And every time
you know what, Eric?
What?
I don't mind that.
Okay.
So, you're there with a lot of other ghosts. So, there's just, and I might be having multiple conversations with all those in my head. But yes, absolutely. They always talk about that concept of someone's living in your head rent free. I think that's there.
Well, it's kind of exciting because it will give you the courage when those demons come out. And, those tricks come out and they say, oh, yeah, but come on, I'm just a little trick. Come on, but man, you got to win that battle. You got to win that individual battle. You played football. We talked about it. In football, you got 11 men on the field for each team, and everybody's got a job to do. And you got to beat your man and do your job, and you got to win your battle.
Right. Because, the truth of it is every single play that's designed from any snap is if all 11 do their job, except for special teams, you score a touchdown. If everybody does their job.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. And everybody deserves to be scoring touchdowns and winning. And, if you're listening to this, Rex, kudos to you to bring this conversation, man. I mean, you are being honest, authentic, real with people, and I'm being honest, authentic, and real with people. And people say, Plasker, you're just a little over the top passionate for me. But listen, here's the thing, everybody. There was a time that I was you. For many of you, I was 60 pounds overweight. I would make jokes about myself and I would put myself down because I had all the evidence that I was right about putting myself down because of the way that I was living my life.
Right.
And I was tired and I was fatigued. And, listen, if I could do it, you could do it.
Mm-hmm.
I put my pants on the way you put your pants on. I get up in the morning. I make choices every day. Well, we all have choices to make. And come on, if you're listening to this, if you're listening to Rex and you're tuned into his show, he's got ordinary people, beautiful people that are doing really good things in the world. And you're one of them. And that's why you're listening. So take this on and make yourself happy and make yourself fulfilled. And you talked about service, Rex, which, the last part in the last section of the 100-Year Lifestyle, we talk about leadership. And we talk about the leadership ladder. And you have to start by leading yourself. So many people get frustrated because they're trying to lead, but they're not being followed. Well, if you want to be more followable, then you got to lead yourself first.
Yep. So is that for folks like me who have, I didn't get married till I was 28, have spent the last almost 30 years being low man on the totem pole. And I used to say, 5 kids, wife, I'm the distant 7th, okay? Because all of that comes ahead of me. Is that the hardest part of when people are like me, those out there listening like me? Is that the hardest part, to go from the back of the line to the front? I can remember when we used to run, we used to call it the Bear Mile, because I went to University of Northern Colorado, and we were the Bears. And you would do this where everybody would be running in a line, and the last guy had to run and sprint past everyone to get to be the lead. And then you just kept doing that cycle. So about every 20 people, you had to sprint to catch to the front of the line. How do I get to that front of the line? I mean, is that a big hurdle?
Well, it's a great question, and I remember that drill, by the way.
Yeah.
You don't need permission. So, and if you feel like you do, I'm going to give you permission. So everybody, you have permission. And wake up a half hour earlier, wake up an hour earlier, and just start to take care of yourself first.
Yep.
And if you want people to treat you differently, you have to treat yourself differently first, because you teach people how to treat you. So you can't wait for people, because otherwise they're just going to buy the things that made you uncomfortable, and they're going to, continue to feed the habits that made you uncomfortable, because they actually love you and they want you to be happy. They just don't know that you've changed. So you have to let them know that no, change is easy. Thinking about change is hard. I'm drawing the line in the sand, everybody. And they'll test you. They'll say, oh, yeah, but not today, you're not. No. I am drawing the line in the sand. And so what's important here is, as you draw the line in the sand, is you're putting yourself first, and you start to you teach people how to treat you. So they'll say, hey, honey, what are you doing? It's 5:30 in the morning. What are you doing getting up? I'm going for a walk this morning. What? Have you lost your mind? Yup, I lost my mind. I'm taking care of myself. Change is easy. Thinking about change is hard. And then you block out maybe a half hour during the day to meditate or take a little rest if you need to. And you start to do that every single day. And all of a sudden they're like, wow, you're serious? You were serious about that. And you're like, yeah, I was serious about that. And all of a sudden they start to treat you differently. And then your kids look at you differently. And at first they're like, Dad, you're not going to be, nah, Mom, come on. You're just messing. You're not going to do it. You've done that before. You've been on a diet. No, I'm not dieting anymore. I'm changing my life. And you just change your conversation. And, we have, a lot of you will want to cleanse. We have a company that we have a great relationship with. We love their products. It's their nutrigen.com. Mm-hmm. And if you go there, and if you want to order a cleanse or order some great product, you can only get it from a doctor. If you go in the first time and you put in 100YL as the provider, you'll see 100 Year Lifestyle will come up. And then on your first order of these nutritional products, cleansing products, digestive products, immune system products, very simple product line, very clean, organic, made in America, non-GMO, vegan, all of those good things that are really important. And then your first order, if you put in 100YL in your first order, you'll get they'll give you 10% off of your first order. So it's there's support there. They have great nutritional resources also. And a lot of the what to eat is in the 100-Year Lifestyle too. But what's going to happen is, when you go down this path and you start making changes, they're going to test you. There's going to be the chocolate on the bed is going to show up a lot of different ways as you're driving on the road. And, you have the donut shop calls you. They're not really calling you, but innately they're trying to call you. And you say, no, I'm changing my life. And in the beginning, Rex, that may happen 1,000 times a day.
Sure.
And then in a month, it'll happen 100 times a day. In 3 months, it'll happen 10 times a day. And then fast forward 3 years later, if you stick with it, it'll happen once a month or once every 6 months. And then maybe you'll treat yourself every now and then, or maybe you'll give in, but you get right back on track with your choices, because you have taken control of your life. And that, to me, honestly, is so beautiful to see people take charge of their life. We see so many people that are winning now that felt like they could never win, because they got a long-term vision, they're making the changes, and they're committed to it.
So how do people get engaged with you? How do people get started and deploy the 100-Year Lifestyle? I know you have over 100 offices that are working with this, but how do people get started?
Great. So go to 100yearlifestyle.com, a couple of different things. You're going to see an ebook pop up. It's called Becoming a Least Vulnerable Person. You can start to make changes. There's like 15 or 20 things in that ebook that if you start making those changes, they will make you less vulnerable. They will be lifestyle changes that will be supportive of your health and vitality and make you fearless in your journey. That's number one. Also on 100yearlifestyle.com, we have recipes. We're putting up new articles all the time.
Okay.
You can get, we have 100 Year Lifestyle second edition is there. So you can go there. Go to our social media pages. We have great posts that we're putting up all the time. Social media, we have our Facebook group and our Facebook page. We have our community group on Facebook. We have our Instagram page. So once you get plugged in, we'll keep you abreast of everything. We have workout shirts that people buy. We have our network of doctors, chiropractors. They're fantastic. They own their own clinics, but they're teaching the 100-year lifestyle in their practices, and they have great information there, and they have great care. So for those of you that want to do a cleanse and you don't want to do it on your own, they probably have their version of this cleanse there as well. They'll also put you on a care plan that'll take you from crisis care to lifestyle care to get healthy again. And I'll tell you an interesting story. We had a family that was in yesterday. My son, Dr. Corey, and all three of my kids are chiropractors. Dr. Jacob and Emily practice in Bend, Oregon. They attract people from around the country. We have lots of chiropractors on the West Coast, doctors on the West Coast. But Dr. Corey's, one of his patients, they were here the other day, and this family, they were referred by another family. They just completed their first year from crisis care, making this transition to lifestyle care. And you know what they told me? That one of the kids was taking a lot of medication for some serious issues. And it was dangerous medication, and they didn't want to take it, but they didn't know what to do. So the whole family started under care. Well, they just completed their year. They're about to recommit themselves for lifestyle care. They're really excited about it. And guess how much money they spent in medical expenses this past year compared to previous years? How much money, a dollar amount, how much they spent on medical expenses this past year? Where in the past it was like tens of thousands of dollars a year. Guess how much they spent on medical care?
I don't know, 500 to 1,000?
Zero.
That's great.
Zero. You know, people, it's amazing to me. My family, we're blessed with good health, but it's not by accident.
Sure.
I mean, we've had accidents, but if you take, I know over the last, my kids are 31, 29, and 27. Mm-hmm. We were not regular pediatrician visitors. We figured if we had a scale, a tape measure, and some common sense and a good chiropractor that, you know, we would rarely need to see a pediatrician, and we didn't have to see the pediatrician very often. And so when you look at all the money that my family spent with 3 kids, plus our health insurance, let's say over the years, let's say over 30 years, it's been $50,000 in health insurance checks to pay for health insurance. And let's figure another with 3 kids, some accidents, traumas, things like that. Let's say another $15,000, $20,000, maybe over all 90 years of children, basically with 3 kids. I mean, that's it.
That's it. Wow.
That's it.
That's
last
incredible.
year, 0. The year before, 0. The year before, 0. The year before, 0. When my wife was pregnant, it was $2,000. You know what I'm saying? But there's no medical expenses when you're healthy.
Yeah. Oh, it's a reverse philosophy of the current healthcare system, and I believe there's a place for all. I think everybody has a seat at the table in the system because there are diseases and conditions and things like that do need some of the chemical contributions to that, but it's never
right.
holistic.
Which, by the way, I didn't say that wasn't true either.
No, I agree. I would agree with you. I'm just making my own personal statement here. I'm not somebody who's anti-pharmacology. I believe that there's a seat at the table for all the contributors, but it's never really been something where until recently, where each one of those people who have a seat at the table from all the disciplines in healthcare have actually been promoting the others. It's been a mine way's better than yours way kind of thing. And so I think it's interesting that the world's waking up to it. I mean, in addition to my wonderful self-generated diabetes, I actually am bipolar. And it's only been in the last, I'm bipolar 2, undefined. They have no idea how to fix me. So that's a good thing. But they just in the last few years have been talking about holistic care and other contributing factors. Before, it was chuck you some medicine and good luck.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is the healthcare hierarchy of the 100-year lifestyle is self-care first, healthcare second, crisis care last.
Yeah.
And when you put crisis care first, that's where it becomes a problem. And so what I find, like people that have your situation and condition, if you clean up your diet, you eliminate the weight, you cleanse and get rid of the toxins, you start getting adjusted, your posture changes, your neurology balances out.
Yeah.
No doubt in my mind, because we see it all the time, you may still need your medicine, but you'll need less.
Yeah.
And you'll feel better and you'll feel younger and you'll be more energetic. No question about it in my mind if you make those choices. And so I believe in you, Rex. I believe in you. I'm talking to you, Rex, and
Yeah,
all
I
my
know.
friends
I'm
out
listening.
there.
I'm listening hard.
Yeah.
So, well, I appreciate you coming on today and unpacking the 100-year lifestyle. I bring subjects and people on this show. I mean, that's nice. I get to pick and choose. You know, I'm the gatekeeper, but I bring people onto the show because I think it can help people, and I believe in what you're doing. And I can't wait to be all in, because that's what you need to be. Go to relentless.com, folks, and see where that takes you. So I want to be all in. I want to go be all in.
Yeah.
And it's good to have you on the show to talk about this, because I know we could talk for hours and hours and hours and hours, but I appreciate your time today. And so I thank you for coming on, Dr. Plasker. It's been really educational and informative today. I really like the idea of having your number. You know, just don't think people ever think about that. Now, the older I get, the more I think about my mortality. I mean, it's just one of those things.
Well,
But
what is true is that now that you have that number in your head, every time you drive by the grocery store and it's Wednesday and it's maybe Senior Citizens Day and you go in there and you see people struggling to walk down the aisles, you think, okay, is today the day I'm going to make the change?
yeah,
Or you drive by the assisted living center that's on every corner and the ambulance is there again, picking up another person.
yep,
And you realize, you know what? Come on now. I need to make some changes. And, those things that I just described, you don't see them in other countries like you see them in the United States. We think we have the best healthcare system in the world. We do not. We have one of the worst healthcare systems in the world. We have some of the best technologies, but we
yep.
have one of the worst systems. We have like 53rd in life expectancy. We have 5% of the world's population, and we take 50% of the world's drugs. I mean, we are out of balance, way out of whack, man. It's
Yeah,
time to get it
absolutely.
back in whack.
Well, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate that. We'll call this a wrap for today's episode, and we might just need to have you come back for part 3.
Well, we should follow your journey, man. We should follow your journey.
That's a really good idea. I like that, and there'd be fun updates. That would be a good story. For once, we might even tell Rex's story. So we'll see.
There you go.
Yes, let's see. But thanks for coming on. So, folks, we'll call that an episode for today. Again, please go to the 100yearlifestyle.com, look at the information, and then also please stop by our website, rexandrewshow.com. You'll get profiles of all of our guests and links. I mean, we only ever scratch the surface on people's stories, and we have everyday people doing amazing things, and Dr. Plasker is one of those. So until next time, I always say this: be safe, but be bold and make it a great day.